What do you say, everybody? Roll Tide. Welcome to Cover Crimson. We're going to get into a lot on today's show, including the press conference that Kalen DeBoer just wrapped up. We're going to talk more about the Alabama-Florida State game and address a lot of your comments. You know, is Alabama weak? I've read that. I've said that. You guys have said that. Are they soft? I mean, that's a conversation that's worth having. And can they turn it around? It's the other thing. Hey, we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort, Philadelphia, Mississippi. Now's the time to get to the sports book. That's the Timeout Sports Lounge right there in Golden Moon Casino. And that is in Choctaw, Philadelphia, hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from Birmingham. But they got Silver Star, Golden Moon Casino, 2 casinos that are fantastic, Vegas style, and you don't have to go all the way out to Vegas. All right, we're going to get into this right now. I can tell you guys are chomping at the bit. I know Clint's got a lot to say, so let me go ahead and do this. All right, we're back. We saw you guys for 2.5 hours after the game on Saturday, and give me a little more light here. And Clint, I don't think things have slowed down, man. People just 5-5 in the last 10 games. Another one of these games where Alabama got outclassed, outcoached, outplayed, and I mean, you got a chance to go back and look at it. What do you think?
You know, you start working through the film, and really, what's the point in going back and watching the film if you're looking to stay mad about it? You know, I think the focus for me when I do it is to figure out what went wrong. Some people aren't interested in hearing what went wrong. They just want to be mad about it, which I understand. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of things I saw on that tape that I'm still really mad about. But, you know, it's such an interesting way that it worked out. The things that you can excuse, though, are the loafing, the lack of effort from some of your key guys, the fact that, you know, you've got undisciplined play. You know, James Smith is in his 3rd year. Damani Jackson is in his 4th year. They're both considered team leaders. They're both really important. James Smith is extra important right now with Tim Keenan, one of your team leaders, being out. So you talk about a redshirt freshman in Jeremiah Beeman. You talk about a true freshman in London Simmons. Edric Hill's been around for a few years now. You know, he's in year 3. But, you know, at this point, James Smith is by far the leader of that room as far as active on the field players. You can't have that guy. And some people were like, oh, it was a soft call. When you throw your forearm into the quarterback's helmet and slam it against the ground, and it is a little bit late, it's going to get called. So while, I do think that they baby quarterbacks and stuff sometimes, I mean, that's going to get called. And if you're James Smith, you have to know that that's going to get called. And it was at a critical point in the football game. They were trying to fight their way back. But this is the other part that upsets me, Mick. Why are you constantly having to fight back? In all of these games, Vanderbilt get down multiple scores early. Oklahoma, you know, Tennessee was like, he actually did a good job in the first half as far as keeping Tennessee from establishing any sort of lead on defense, but the offense couldn't create its own separation to help you play with the lead and kind of stay in your comfort zone while forcing Tennessee to be uncomfortable. You look at Oklahoma, get down multiple scores early. You look at Michigan, multiple scores early. You look at this game against Florida State, multiple scores, you know, by the midway point of the second quarter. And then with it, when there's 10 minutes left in the third quarter, you're down 3 scores. And then people wonder, okay, why can't you, why aren't you committing more to the run game and stuff? I do think that it got pass happy a little bit too soon. When you open the second half, you're down 2 scores and you immediately throw the football 6 times. I don't think that you have to do that or you should do that. And we'll get into the reasons why. But it's more so of like, there were moments earlier in the game where they could have been more committed. So I'm not necessarily defending Ryan Grubb, but I am saying based off a game script, by the time you got down 3 scores and it's 10 minutes left in the third quarter, that feels like you got a lot of time. But think about it. You got 4 possessions max left especially if Florida State keeps making you earn everything that you're getting offensively and you're taking up 7-8 minutes, you're not getting 3 drives. So how do you get the 3 scores? You got to rely on a defensive score, which you shouldn't be doing in the first place. So it's like, I understand at that point why he kind of got away from it, but how do you keep finding yourself down in these games? Because once you do, the mental fortitude of this team under Kalen DeBoer is not proven to be capable of making a comeback and overcoming a lot of obstacles. We never will know. It did feel like in that Oklahoma game when Ryan Williams caught that touchdown, we never will know what would have happened. A lot of momentum would have been captured there, but they were handed momentum by Florida State with that muff punt, and they did absolutely nothing with it. So for us to assume that they would have come back against Oklahoma down like they were, I mean, we probably shouldn't be doing that. It's very frustrating at this point to continue to watch the problems because it all sounds good. It really does. But where I'm at now, because I've always been the optimist, but at a certain point, I stuck my neck out a lot for this team. I listened to people behind the scenes. I trusted what they told me. When I would see it, granted, I understand based off of what I was seeing, in the A-Day practice or scrimmage or whatever. But when you've got people, and then you hear other people that are also talking to their source and they're coming back, and you got Greg McElroy going to practice and coming back with positive stuff, and Josh Pate and other people. It's like this. I mean, I can't see it with my own eyes, but based off of what I'm talking to behind the scenes and then what they're saying publicly when they do see it with their own eyes, it's like, man, you really start to buy in, and somehow we create this cycle that we all jump on board, and then it actually gets in the field and it looks nothing like you were expecting. And that's the part to me. It's like, okay, you can say all the things you want to say off the field and make it sound good. But at a certain point, what you're getting on the field in this game, the only data point we have so far for 2025 is a lot of what you had as far as last year and a lot of the struggles that you had. At some point, I got to stop defending you because we got to wait for the results to actually happen before we can start saying that you're getting some of this stuff fixed, instead of saying, hey, they're getting all this stuff fixed, and then they get on the field and it's like, you look like an idiot. So I'm not going to make those mistakes anymore. I'm still incredibly frustrated. I did see some things on tape where you can kind of see how the game played out and why it played out the way it did. But, when you're seeing the same things constantly, you can talk about unfortunate breaks and, players. If you got guys late hitting out of bounds or jumping on a quarterback late, that's a discipline problem. If you got guys committing other kinds of penalties that constantly keep you as the most penalized team in the game, I mean, that's a discipline problem. And so, coaching definitely plays into this. And I do think some of the schematics also need to be addressed, because when you're mugging linebackers, and when you mug, you bring in guys up on the line of scrimmage. As a linebacker, which is what I played, how can you create a downhill physical mentality when I'm on the line of scrimmage and my first steps as the ball is being snapped is to go backwards? So, I mean, like, that's what I'm saying as far as creating this mentality of, oh, you got to be downhill and physical and doing that. And I understand that it's a lateral moving offense, and you've got to be able to figure out, you got to let them establish where the football is going. But at the same time, I just think some of the things they're doing schematically, it's not working, Mick.
Yeah, I've heard that from a guy that played in the NFL, and he was like kind of worried about this last year too. The just the fundamentals of this swarm defense, positioning and stuff like that. Look, that's not my area of expertise. I just go off of what you guys say, but we didn't have any of a pass rush, none. At the beginning of the game. I mean, like, it was like, kind of got some late, and then the quarterback ran right by our guys. Like
that. Mick, can I say something about that? Because I think you raise a great point.
Yeah.
You're rushing 3. I actually think when they were rushing 4 guys, there's going to be a crease. Right. Unless you're sending 5, there's going to be. So rushing 4, Tommy Castellanos was finding the crease way too often. The gap that wasn't responsible for as far as that pass rush, he was finding it and he was exploiting it. A lot of people were like, oh, these 3-man fronts, what do you do? And I actually think they were more effective going with the 3-man fronts and having a quarterback spy where it's like, okay, you now got 2 gaps that you can pick, but we're going to have somebody in your face as you are breaking through one of those creases. Well, I don't think they did that enough, actually. There was not enough, QB spying. in this type of, you can talk about being aggressive and getting after the quarterback, but you even saw it when they were being very aggressive attacking the mesh point. Florida State, I mean, they were doing a great job of just getting the handoff off, and give Tommy Castellanos a lot of credit. He was making very quick reads based off of the aggressiveness of the defensive line. If that guy came crashing, he was able to see it quickly, knew to give it to the running back, and they were able to move right past him, and now it's a wide open, you got a lot of running room as far as being a running back. So I understand. I think this type of game, it's hard. When you're going against a dual threat player, it's hard to create a pass rush unless that quarterback, for instance, Jalen Milroe last year, dynamic runner, and teams had to kind of respect him in a similar way. But then, when he's actually being asked to do the drop back stuff and go through progressions, and he's not great at it, then you give opposing defenses opportunities to create a pass rush, get you in negative situations. And I mean, Tommy Castellanos, Gus Malzahn never put him in that situation. He didn't do a whole lot of drop back stuff where Alabama was able to actually, get a pass rush. So it's a catch-22, but I agree with you that they have to do something because of what we saw on Saturday. Clearly it's not working, and you're going to give up some stuff to these types of offenses. There, Gus Malzahn, he's got a deep, playbook, a lot of different things they can pull, but you're not seeing to the degree that we need to, the ability to affect the quarterback, and they have to work on that.
What did you think they did well defensively?
Because
here's what because I didn't see him stop the run. I didn't see him get after the quarterback. They didn't get a pass rush. They didn't win many one-on-one battles. They looked slower than the other team, just on defense.
Great point. And I'm going back through the defense right now. It's not great, and there is a lot of problems. I think it's a combination of factors. The loafing, which is a coaching problem. There's some schematical issues, coaching problem. And this is why I say, I'm not going to defend these guys right now until some of this stuff starts getting fixed. And I'm not saying they're not trying to hold these guys accountable. Kalen DeBoer is saying all the right things. I do think the two veterans who got the late hits, they're, paying for it in practice. We'll see how much that matters. And I do like the fact that he said, hey, it's not about, okay, we got these guys taken care of, but who's going to be the guy next week that gets their one? And we got to discipline him, and then we got to teach these guys individually. You need to see what's happening with James Smith and Damani Jackson for their mistakes, and you got to learn from them. At a certain point, you can't be. Not everybody gets a mulligan. So I like that is being said. How much is that going to actually translate to the field? Is that discipline, getting on them and making them do stuff? Is that going to finally translate to more discipline on the field? Once again. You can say things, and I've always been one of those people where if it makes sense in my mind, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. I've always tried to do that in every facet of life, but it's not translating to the field. So I've got to stop giving people the benefit of the doubt and saying, okay, until I see some results, man, you gotta do something.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey guys, let me tell you about this. As you get ready for opening game this Saturday, you're going to look good. Do it with Roback. Roback.com, Crimson 20. That's our promo code, 20% off at Roback. You put the Alabama gear on. Still looks great, even after a loss. Crimson and white, I think, is the best color scheme in athletics. But they have their own designs. They got some cool polos and stuff like that. So check them out at Roback.com, and we appreciate them for being part of what we do here. From an offensive standpoint, and we're kind of reacting to what Kalen DeBoer said at the press conference, right? So let's talk about quarterback Ty Simpson. I've been pretty easy on Ty. I mean, I thought that DeBoer kind of nailed it. He left some plays out on the field. He's got to let it rip. But he probably didn't want to make it worse by throwing interceptions. It didn't feel like the wide receivers were that open. Maybe they were, and he was just kind of not getting the ball there in time, besides Bernard. But I like the effort that Ty played with, and that's something that this team needs to grow from. And it's only his first game. It's a lot of pressure for a guy's first game when you're coming from behind like that. what did you think of Ty? What did you think of the offensive line and the running backs blocking? Just that part of it.
You know, think about how things played out with Coker, because he wasn't the starter at Florida State. He got beat out by Blake Sims in 2014, and then he gets out there for the beginning of 2015, and there was a reason. I don't remember the early games that season, but there was a reason that Alabama staff even contemplated and eventually benched him. You know, I'm guessing that maybe he was dealing with some similar issues as Ty, as far as finally getting his chance to start. He had been in college for several years, but he was a guy who continued to ascend as the season progressed, especially when he went out there, kind of earned the respect of his teammates against Ole Miss when he got put into that football game, showed toughness, and he never looked back from that point. I still believe in Ty. There were issues, though. He hung onto the football too long at times. He bailed on clean pockets. Now, everybody wants to say he was running for his life. Like, oh, can you blame him? Some of the running was because he was under duress. Some of it was just because he wanted to run. So running for your life, I mean, when some of that can be self-inflicted, and it was. But I did see on film, there were some times where he wanted to escape and bail, but he realized, hey, it's there. I got to trust, like Ron Williams. He gets open. Instead of bailing, he pulls back up and he delivers a strike to him. It was a short completion, but it's like he's wanting to, his habit is to bail out of the pocket, but he's trying to force himself to get out of that habit, and you see it working out in real time. You can do all these things in practice, but when the bullets are live, I mean, it's a much different beast. But he did battle, and I think you can build around that. But here's what Ryan Grubb essentially was talking about and it was a problem when I was watching the All-22. I still haven't made it all the way through, but he was going through his progressions. First read was open, but it was like in his head, because it wasn't the big splashy play, he would work past that progression to number 2 or even a number 3 when number 1 was open, so he could get to more of those intermediate to deeper routes. And Ryan Grubb's point is there's a reason that guy's the primary. If he's open, throw him the football. Stop playing hero ball. And that is something that a lot of people, you can say that it doesn't fall on Ty Simpson. I don't think it falls on Ty Simpson. I said yesterday on Twitter, Ty Simpson is not the issue, but he is an issue right now. But all of his stuff is just it being his first career start. The defense was getting after Alabama. We talked about, hey, why don't you go on the road to Tallahassee and put him in a position where he is comfortable and confident by giving him a lead and playing good defense, complementary football, and those things where he can actually work through some of these things. Instead, they get down multiple scores early, and by, midway point of the second quarter, he's down, 14 points. And so now he's trying to play hero ball, trying to help Alabama come back. And it's like, so that it's the combination thing. You can't put it all on Ty Simpson. That's the bottom line. But to say that he is completely absolved of any responsibility, that's also false. He played a little bit of a part in it. But what I like about how he performed is that his issues will get better with more experience. So I'm not necessarily worried about Ty at all. I thought he did a good job of protecting the football and did what he needed to do to, try to help Alabama the best that he could. But due to his own deficiencies right now and due to everything else around him not going very well, it created a situation where he was kind of, I said going into this year, I think he's set up for success all around him. Everything that you need as a quarterback, he's got it. Nothing on Saturday was set up for success for Ty Simpson. Nothing. So while some of his issues were his own doing, there were a lot of issues with Alabama that had nothing to do with Ty Simpson, and you've got to be able to acknowledge both.
Yeah, and look, I unfortunately, I don't think Florida State's that good of a team. I just think Alabama played bad, that they played poorly. I think that this is a 7 or 8 win team, maybe, right? I could be wrong, but could be. I mean, they play in a weak conference, but I just don't look at that team and go, oh, this is a national championship contender. I think they got some good players. Bama wasn't prepared for it. They had some advantages, obviously, because we never saw them on film or whatever, but it's a lot of this is excuses. Kalen DeBoer said in the post game, no excuses, and then came back today and addressed a lot of this stuff. But the fan base is as angry at the head coach as they've been since Shula. Saban never had one day like that in his time at Alabama. Remember he got there, and people were tired of this. And 92,000 people showed up for a practice game. because they wanted Alabama football to be back to being Alabama football, which hadn't been that way in a long time. Now, I know that college football has changed a lot, over the last few years because there's no rules and, some teams can have more money to buy players, but I don't know that that's the problem at Alabama, Clint. I don't know that buying players or not can have guys loafing around and a lack of effort and a lack of enthusiasm. And let me remind you guys of this right here, Clint. Then I want you to talk about Coach DeBoer at the press conference. But do you know what these have in common? Discipline, individual responsibility, process over outcome, commitment, effort, toughness, and pride. Do you know what those are?
Those were core principles for Saban's program.
That's right. And that's what the program was built on. So it didn't matter about the wins and losses. It was out there doing the things that you had to do as an individual player and a teammate that were under those guidelines, and the team held each other accountable to those. Watching that game on Saturday, I feel like we're a long way from that.
You're not wrong. That's the part that's frustrating. And, all you can do, like at this point, Florida State happened. It looked how it looked, which is nothing like anybody was expecting. I say anybody. There were a lot of people who were super negative and down on Bama. And right now those people are holding trophies because it seems like they were very right. And I don't really have much of a response other than to say at this point, I'm going to tip my hat to you because you were a lot more right than I was. But, all we got right now is words until Saturday against Louisiana Monroe. And then how much are you really going to take away from that? Even if everything looks wonderful, are we going to come back next Monday and say, oh, everything's fixed, everything's good? No, it's not going to show us anything. I would even say against Wisconsin, the fact that it's a home game, the fact Wisconsin, we'll have to see how good or not good they are. But, it's possible that you come out of that game and it's like things look great, but, is it really to a point where things are corrected? Like we're not going to know about any of these issues and whether they're continuing to be a problem until bare minimum Georgia. If you go into Athens in a very hostile environment against a very good football team and you're more disciplined, you make fewer mistakes, you hustle 1,000 times more, you feel a lot more comfortable, and you got your playmakers making plays, which I didn't think there was enough of that on Saturday.
Right.
Then we can start saying, okay, I'm feeling better about it. Still won't know because it's like, okay, now that everybody's singing their praises again, we'll see what happens against Vanderbilt the following week, or later on in the season when they go on the road to play South Carolina or Missouri, who I think is a good, not great football team, a team that's very capable of beating you going into their house. But Alabama's probably going to be a multi-score, favorite. Like those are where we'll start to figure out what this team's about, because last year we fell for it hook, line, and sinker, way too many times. But what I will say is it's something that, and I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. But and I just don't want to butcher it, which is why I'm not even going to attempt it. But the comment says, my nephew is the running back Riley's good friend. He said that the players were concerned because Ty was super nervous and the energy was bad. I have no idea if what they're saying is true. But because I don't know them, but let's assume that it is, because it did. He was talking pregame about having to talk to Nick Saban and how do you handle the nerves and everything. So that kind of falls in line with what was said publicly by Simpson. And that is probably concerning, because the anxiety thing, now that's going to be expected for a first game starting quarterback, especially going into a hostile environment like that. Right. Like you look at Arch Manning against a way better football team, or at least we think so, in Ohio State, but all this hype and excitement about Arch Manning, and he actually played in some games, no big games. They were all manageable, but he had got some meaningful playing experience, multiple games worth, and then he goes to the shoe and completely falls apart against Ohio State. He looked awful. And so even it's not just a Ty Simpson problem. I think a lot of that was nerves and circumstances, and some things go wrong around you, and there's just been a lot of pressure on Arch Manning. Like sometimes that happens. I think it's too premature on Arch. Is he this prodigy that everybody built him up to be? Maybe not. But I also think he's going to be a much, much, much better player as he gets more comfortable being the guy and everything than he showed in that one game. Same thing for Ty Simpson. But I can see where when Ty's having to deal with that going to Tallahassee for the first matchup, you're going to sit there and say, okay, that's not the right energy you want as far as the rest of your guys. Because one of the things I said about Ty, once again, something else I was wrong about was, he has that kind of swagger and confidence where it's like you feel like you can win with him. Like even when things aren't going right, when you've got that type of quarterback, and Bryce Young really didn't have that necessarily that swagger where he was cocky, but he had that swagger where it's like it didn't matter what position Alabama was in. You felt like they had a chance because you had Bryce Young. And Alabama felt none of that, if that is true, which makes a lot of sense with Ty Simpson going into Saturday. So when things start going wrong, you don't have that belief. But at the same time, these are all issues that should improve as more experience is earned.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on Ty. I think Ty's going to get better. I really do. But he did look scared, and some of the stuff he said coming into it was, hey, this is a dream come true to be Alabama's quarterback. Russell's like, hey, I just want to learn to play so I can win a national championship, and what was different when you're saying that when you go out there, I don't know. I think Russell will eventually be the guy. But I think Ty it'll slow down for him. And, that was going to be the case. It's a tough environment to go there and play. And then we had that first drive, and I heard Kalen DeBoer talking about it. She was a dominant first drive. And I thought this is something that you can definitely build on. But he also talked about how many plays it took to get down the field and the effort that it took. And if the defense could have avoided the holding penalty and could have stopped them, maybe it's a different game early. But I don't feel like the defense we kind of talked about the defense. I don't feel like they ever did anything that made me think they were going to be able to go out there and really stop anybody. But Ty did seem nervous. I mean, I could see that. And that's why you play this week's game before you play that one, just so that you have a chance to go out there and experience what it's like and kind of get an idea. This was a kind of a risky type of game to play coming out of the chute. And I'm sure when Saban scheduled it, he probably wasn't thinking that it was going to be Kalen DeBoer coaching.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that played a part. And I mean, I guess you can take the Indiana route and cancel all your tough games to make things as easy as possible. And then, if you're playing Marshall in the first game like Georgia, who lost all of their head coach and all their good players to Southern Miss, probably we would be saying, oh, there's a couple of issues, but everything's good, great, and wonderful. Not really knowing that some of these problems exist. One thing about this is that this has exposed a lot of problems early. It's a matter of, do you get them fixed? I mean, at this point, we'll have to wait and see. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I'm confident that everything's going to get corrected. But you raise a great point. Florida State did an amazing job of making Alabama earn everything they got offensively, everything. And I think that frustrated Alabama. We talked about Ryan Grubb, and he has mentioned that they had gone multiple practices, hitting their explosive play number, and they were doing that in these scrimmages other than the second scrimmage. They didn't get that, but we heard about Ty Simpson taking what the defense was giving him. And lower pressure situation. But, I think this offense is built on explosive plays, some of that in the run game, a lot of that in the passing game. But you got to think, even when the explosive plays were there, Rico Scott's open downfield, Ty Simpson misses him. It was an off the mark target. You talk about what Florida State was doing. Hey, I'll give up 15 yards gladly to keep you from hitting this explosive play. Ryan Williams gets behind the defense. 15-yard penalty, commit a penalty on him, keep him from hitting that explosive play and scoring a touchdown, live to fight another day. Did it twice in this game. So between a couple of factors, whether it be Ty Simpson being a little bit off as far as the vertical ball, whether it be what Florida State was willing to do, which was smart football, give them credit, and then just playing for the most part the rest of the game in a way where Alabama had to earn everything they got. I think that not having that explosive play ability, they didn't handle it well. And that is something that not only the players need to correct, because I think there was this pressure on that Ty Simpson felt, and I don't know if it was because he knew how this offense is supposed to operate and they want those explosives, and so he started trying to take those explosives when they weren't there, or if it's Ryan Grubb and the play calling, him kind of getting away from the run game. I think he made mention or at least Kalen DeBoer might have made mention something about them getting away from the run a little bit because there wasn't enough explosives. I mean, I went back and looked, and I mean, I got it all right here, and I could probably share it. I probably will to Twitter, but I looked at every run that every player had. And, I thought, after the first drive, I think they did a much better job on the first drive than any of the rest, but they still had some favorable situations when they were running the football on first down. They weren't having a lot of success. If they threw it on first and they didn't have success on that first down, how this offense works is, okay, we're going to run, unless you're doing a Ryan Grubb, 6 passes in a row to start the second half. If they don't have success on first down as far as throwing it, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're going to run the football on second down. Typically when that happens, they don't have a lot of success. They're trying to create a more favorable third down situation, but then you get stuffed in those situations, and now it's a 3rd and long, and it just felt like Alabama started living in those. And then the tackles, especially Caden Proctor, he's not built for those situations. So it's like there's things that you can look at and say, okay, I can see how all this led to this, but there's things that you guys have to be able to get corrected from a discipline standpoint, from a loafing standpoint, and just from, being willing to trust your guys a little bit more. To me, I don't know how much they trust Kevin Riley as far as pass protection, but if they do trust him in that area, he should have played more. They should have relied on him more because he was having a lot of success, putting Alabama in favorable situations, running the football. Very explosive, was really impressed, but he only had 1 pass protection snap. So it's hard to know how effective he is or isn't. We heard about the other 4 guys and how they fit in as far as pass protection, but I don't recall Ryan Grubb ever talking about that with Kevin Riley. So maybe that has something to do with it, but he was easily Alabama's best runner. I thought Richard Young was pretty hit or miss, but he had some good moments. I thought Daniel Hill, through first glance, didn't think he played very well, and then go back and watch the tape, and I think, okay, so on his first carry, he takes it for 7 yards to create a 2nd and 3 situation. On his second carry, he is 2nd and 3, and he goes for -2 yards. He kind of slipped. Obviously, there was a couple of defenders in the backfield, so it wasn't really his fault. And then the other carry was a 4-yard gain on 1st and 10 to create a 2nd and 6. So a 2nd and 3 and a 2nd and 6 are good situations to be in from an offensive standpoint. He had a short yardage situation that he wasn't able to get the job done, but I think that was justifiable. I do think that there was some loafing on his part as far as when he didn't have the football. So maybe that's playing into his limited playing time. But as far as how effective he was, I thought he did pretty well. Dre Washington didn't get many opportunities. Maybe he would be better with higher volume, but he did nothing with it. I think either a 1-yard gain or a 0-yard gain and a -2 yard gain. So I think moving forward until you get Jam Miller back, and maybe that Jam Miller loss is a lot bigger than we all thought it would be. Hindsight's 2020, I guess. But if I was Alabama, if you want to continue to ride Young a little bit as far as your starter, mix in some Daniel Hill, but he's got to put his head down and go to work. And then Kevin Riley's a guy who I would continue to have involved because I think he brings an explosive element to the offense.
Yeah, no doubt. Guys, we're presented by, there it is, Residence Inn by Marriott Ocean City, back-to-back Coastal Style Hotel of the Year. Our friend Keith, big Alabama fan, he runs the joint. He wants you to fly up there, drive up there, come hang out with him right there. Enjoy those great sunsets, the awesome seafood. The weather is fantastic there, and you'll love it. What a great place Residence Inn by Marriott is. Secrets Bar, the boardwalk, music, concerts, fishing tournaments, all of it right there in Ocean City, Maryland. I grew up going there. Love the place. So when you think about the tone of the press conference, knowing that everybody right now has had it, like Bama fans, and I read your comments right now, I think the one thing I can agree on with everybody is that this isn't going to work, that this isn't going to fly. You call it loafing, whatever that is, that we saw at Oklahoma, Michigan, this game. That's not Alabama football. It hasn't been. So DeBoer and his staff have to figure it out, and they have to figure it out fast. Do you feel like they addressed that in the press conference? And do you think that's something that you expect to see changed? Can you change that?
I've gone through everything, and what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to, what I'm going to tell you what my thought process was, but also going to tell you at the end of the day, I'm not making any excuses. I'm not going to justify what we saw on Saturday. I'm going to let their play do a little bit more of the talking. I'm going to try to do less of it, even though I'm a big talker. I'll try to more so just explain what I saw and react to what happens rather than, adding a bunch of context to it. But what I will say is after the game, I'm sitting there wondering to myself, I guess it was actually during the game some, I'm like, what's causing this? And I see that play live of Bray Hubbard, trailing, and it's just a loaf. And it's just like, man, that's not him. What's going on? That's not how he plays. And that's why the coaching staff is defending him, because it was so out of character. So I'm sitting there wondering, is he banged up and we don't know? Or is he sick and we don't know? Like, Will Conformity's on the sidelines throwing up. I don't know if that was a conditioning thing. I don't know if I saw something on Twitter about flu going through the team. I've heard nothing about that. Don't know if it's true. It could just be like Will Conformity was dealing with it. But they showed him on the sidelines throwing up, and I don't know if they ever clarified what was going on there. But I see that, I'm like, is it a sickness that's going throughout the team? You don't know. Did they push them too hard? I talked a lot about how I thought the physicality in fall camp was really going to set the stage for them to be ready to be physical in week one. And that did not translate whatsoever. But one of the things that I also brought up was sometimes you can push guys too far, and now they're wore down before the season even starts. And so is that low from Bray Hubbard? Is that just a worn down player? Like, I don't know. And I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, there's justifiable reasons. They're going to be fine. But if you know Bray Hubbard, that's not him. So what caused him to do it? Is it this, he just doesn't care about the team and doesn't care if the coaching staff gets on to him? Is that the Bray Hubbard that anybody knows? So I started asking myself, okay, what's the reason why? And I can't tell you definitively. So I can't defend it definitively. But, I'm trying to come up with other reasons, other possibilities. And what I will say is that I don't know how much the physicality, because we know, and even up to the second scrimmage, you got Jam Miller getting hurt because they were being too physical and beating each other up. And that's great. But I will say it didn't translate at all to week one. And that is a problem. Like that, what was the point in doing all that? If that's what we're going to see, once you get on the game field, it's a big problem, Mick.
I'm going to tell you my honest assessment. And I told Coker this off the air on Friday when we did the tailgate show. These are the guys you want to play. And that's a problem. It used to be Nick Saban say, you want to be the team they don't want to play. You're going to be physical. You're going to be, you're going to be coming at them so many times. They're not going to want to deal with you. We got now a whole locker room of guys that think they won championships. They don't have any rings. That wear the uniform like they went out there and built this dynasty. They didn't build anything. Nobody's a champion in that locker room. None of them.
Yeah, that's true.
And they have to adopt that mentality of what people say a lot of times, that dog mentality, where you got to go out there and be relentless. And I saw Florida State doing that, but I didn't see Alabama doing that. That effort at times reminded me of the same effort against Oklahoma, whether you're talking about the offense, the defense, the coaching. Nothing that a good game couldn't change, right? Nothing that a win couldn't help fix and change, because the effort's the thing that bothers you the most when you go back and look at the way that things went. And Bama used to be known for great effort, But let's just go ahead and call it what it is. These guys haven't won anything. They haven't won anything. And Nick Saban used to say that all the time. He'd say that after they did win something. He had a whole locker room of guys that had won championships. Everybody won one at Alabama. And Coach Saban would say, day one, you guys haven't won anything. And now we got a whole team that thinks they won something. They act like they won something. They haven't won anything. They're just wearing that uniform, okay? They're wearing an Alabama uniform that is synonymous with success. But what they're doing isn't what that uniform was built on. I had a guy text me, said it's like the Superman lost his powers. He's still got the outfit, but he can't fly. you know, they can get back to flying again. That's just going to take hard work. And I honestly, man, the thing that worries me the most, I hate to say this because I like Kalen DeBoer. I think he's a nice guy. I like the fact that he came on and did the tailgate show. I think he is genuinely a great person. But the attention to detail isn't there. It's just not. And the toughness isn't there. And I know they're at practice getting hurt and everything, but in the games, they're not tough. They're getting run over. The scheme on defense, I don't know if it's that they're out of position or not. Watching those guys run past them like that just doesn't cut it, man. And he's paid so much. Guess what, people? You can say you want him out. He's not going anywhere. He's here. So we need to get him and this program where we needed to get and be supportive, because we don't have the money to go and pay him off. And on top of that, I had somebody tell me that who you going to get at this point, I don't know. And I don't think firing him is the answer. I think like that these guys have to get back to what is that uniform's known for. And I think it starts with toughness and discipline and, and pride and effort and commitment and process over outcome and individual responsibility and discipline. But we didn't see this last year either, Clint. I was talking about this last year. It's why I didn't think that's why I took Florida State in the points. Because I'm like, until this team shows me something, I can't go in and buy this. Well, we're 91% chance going to win. And on top of that, all we got to do is show up. We're a 14-point favorite. All of that, is it rat poison, or are we just not disciplined? Are we not following the things that it takes to be successful? That's how I feel about it.
Well, I will say, when I was a sophomore in high school, we had 3 future Alabama players, one being Robbie Zell, who was a walk-on, but he was our quarterback. We had William Ming and we had Alfred McCullough. We ended up winning state. About midway through the season, Ming was the only sophomore that played, and he was a starter, and he was really good. I ended up starting one game about midway through the year due to injury. I'd kind of been earning, some reps, some situational reps with the varsity, but I ended up getting one start. And in that one start, I got to be honest, I was a deer in headlights, and just the pressure, everything that we had been going over in practice. When I got into the game, all of it went out the window. I had no idea what I was doing. Not a clue. Because I did not handle the pressure well whatsoever. And I remember my dad thinking I played a great game because I led the team in tackles. The reason I led the team in tackles is they're like, this 33, we're going to exploit him because he's not doing very well. He's not handling this very well. The reason I say that is to say, and then later on in the season, our starting linebacker tears his ACL right before the state champion, or excuse me, the game before, 2 games before the state championship. And I ended up having to come in and play the second half, kind of the same situation. But what I learned from that was, moving forward my last 2 years, is even if I'm not confident in what I'm doing, I'm going to go 100 miles an hour no matter what. And I'm going to bust somebody's ass. And I might get screamed at because I take the wrong gap. I mean, at that point in time, I was too scared to ask a coach what curl was. They kept telling me to drop back in curl and zone. And I was like too afraid to let people know that I didn't know what that was. So I just dropped back and kind of didn't know what I was doing. But my point in saying all that is, guys started playing on their heels. And I've been there before, when your head's spinning based off of what they're giving you. And it's difficult to pull yourself out of that, especially in the moment. But in those moments, you got to say, I'm going to tag somebody. Right. To where it is not, if someone's going to pay on this play, and it might have created more opportunities for Florida State, but they were moving the football down the field and guys were catching way too much. On the goal line, that was to a point where it was, it was embarrassing how that looked, as far as carrying about 3 or 4 Alabama defenders into the end zone to give them a multi-score lead again in a critical moment in the game. That's where I was like, they're toast. They are done. Because you can just see that they were playing way too timid. That's something that you have to get addressed. Instead of I understand assignment sound and disciplined, all of those are critical factors. You've got to be able to do that, to play defense at a high level, but never at the detriment of your physicality. That is, in my opinion, it's like, you got to go hit somebody. You got to play physical football first and foremost. You got to have pillars, and the one sitting right up there at the top, that has to be physicality and toughness, where they're not going to out tough us on this football field. And if they earned, that's one thing that Florida State, I feel like they went into this game and they did, was from the jump. They were like, everything they get, they are going to earn, because we are going to be wearing their ass out every chance we get. And Alabama played no part in that. And once again, if that's a problem consistently, that comes down to coaching. And so you can talk about the rest of it, and I'm sure they'll be getting, the undisciplined play. I mean, yes, you got to get that stuff cleaned up, but they've got to play hard and fast, nonstop, 4 quarters if they want to be effective and actually live up to a swarm defensive standard.
Okay. Hey, we're going to get to your questions, but let me remind you guys that we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort.
I may not suit up on Saturdays anymore, but I'm still in the game.
Let's roll.
In here, I call the plays, make adjustments, and lay it on the line. Want to feel that fire, that rush? Then you've got to get in the game. I used to say it in the tunnel, and I still say it now. Let's roll.
Let's roll.
All right. Thank you to Pearl River for being part of what we do here. And Coker did a great job in that commercial, by the way. I love how he says fire.
Amazing job.
Fire.
Amazing job.
All right, guys. Let me get to your questions. First off, super chats right to the top of the line. We appreciate all those super chats, man. The super chats help keep the channel going. So whether it's $5, $10, $50, $100, all those really matter to us, and we want to thank you guys so much. All right, Cody, he said, I'm confused on why it seems like they played everyone on the roster. Did we not have starters that can consistently stay out there? I threw this into, why is Dijon Lee covering Squirrel White? I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that's something you never want. I think that was Gus Malzahn seeing an opportunity with a player who is, it's his first game, first ever snap. I mean, he might have come in the snap before, but it was within his first couple of snaps ever playing. Ends up on a 5th-year senior, and that's good coaching by Florida State. What I will say, and I do like this approach or this mentality, is the way that Alabama does it. If you're doing the right things in practice and you're doing everything, you're working hard, you're playing assignment zone football. Now, it doesn't always translate. That's something that Kalen DeBoer and all these coaches, they're like, what we saw in practice last week did not translate to the game field. You got to evaluate that. Now they have data points. But early on, it's like, this guy's been working hard in practice. If he earns our trust through practice to be able to work his way onto the field, we're going to give him some opportunities. See what he does with them. Maybe exactly what he's given us on the practice field is what he's going to give us on the game field. But what that does, how that can be beneficial is, from a recruiting standpoint, freshmen see that and say, hey, I won't be buried on the depth chart just because of the guys ahead of me, no matter how good they are. 2 former 5-star players, one's a projected first-round pick, or at bare minimum a day 2 pick in Damani Jackson in the 2026 NFL draft. And then you got Xavier Brown, who's probably going to eventually be a first-round pick, and he's young. Doesn't matter. If I come in, do what I need to do, work extremely hard, I will be given some opportunities. And then I can control my own destiny, because it will depend on how I do with those opportunities that will determine how much I play moving forward. I like that. But what that will do, or what that can do, is that can put you in situations like that, where Gus Malzahn was chomping at the bit, where he had studied every bit of that he possibly could about Kalen DeBoer in Alabama. And this is one advantage that Florida State had over Alabama that Alabama didn't have over Florida State. And that was that a lot of returning personnel, you could watch game film, find weaknesses, and see how they actually played as a unit. We had no idea what to expect from Florida State. New defense coordinator, offense coordinator, quarterback, offensive line, wide receivers. Where do you find the advantage? And that was one of the unknowns. I just thought that Alabama would be able to out-talent them, because I also trusted the coaching staff, and that is a situation where I was wrong. But that's kind of, I respect the fact that he's giving these guys these opportunities, and there will be growing pains. Kool-Aid McKinstry had growing pains. Tyrion Arnold had growing pains. Yeah. No one wants to lose games off of it, and that absolutely played a factor. It really set the momentum for Florida State, and it's like, in some ways, I don't think Alabama should have, even though they hit that vertical shot, I don't think Alabama should have respected their vertical passing game. They're a short to intermediate passing team, and they're going to be, zone read and read options and all that. Excuse me, inside zone, zone reads off of that, RPOs. That's what this offense is. But that certainly played a factor in helping Florida State capture early momentum, or still a little bit of it back from Alabama after they had scored. And that's part of it. You can say, okay, you need to settle into more guys, but I guarantee you they gave these players a chance. They put them out there in a high pressure situation, and they'll be able to evaluate the tape. And then the players got to say, hey, I was given my chances. I didn't do a whole lot with them. So if I'm not playing a whole lot moving forward, that's on me, not on, they're not giving me a chance. So, pros and cons to how you approach it.
Yeah. I just think you play your best players and then work those guys in, the freshmen, unless you have to, tight end, we knew it was going to be like that. But the secondary, I mean, we thought we had it. We thought we had a lot of really good players with experience. We knew Dijon Lee, and he's going to be a great player, but was he ready at that moment? No, he got toasted, and it's a big play in the game. D, thank you for the super chat, man. Appreciate you. Do you think, since Ty has a C on his jersey, that he can't be pulled if he hypothetically starts to play bad? Though they never pulled Jalen last year. I'll say this, just talking about Jalen, I miss those wheels, man. And I've always, you guys know this, I love a running quarterback, because it's so hard to stop them. And Ty he get out of the pocket. He couldn't make the throws. And then he wasn't running the ball. Like, he just didn't know what he was doing in those situations. He didn't take advantage of the big plays after he worked so hard to run around and get out there, right? I think last year, Clint, now I want to go first on this. I think Jalen Milroe had a pass on everything last year because he stuck with the program, and he got basically got Kalen DeBoer's back when he took the job, and I just think that at the end of the season, we kind of would have liked to have, I don't know why Ty didn't go through this against Michigan. Think about if he would have started against Michigan, where we would be right now. We wouldn't be in a spot where he's out there and it's his first experience, right? But Milroe, stepped up, and he got rewarded for that. And maybe he didn't deserve it at the end of the year. I don't know. I hate the C's. I think they look stupid. I wish they would take those off the uniforms. I don't like them. Zero. I think they look terrible on there. I mean, I respect the captain, but I can't stand that, Clint. I don't like that. And then the answer, though, D, is they will pull his ass if they have to.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I don't think he's getting the amount of, he's a guy who's working extremely hard, but, that's only going to carry him so far. They've got to see improvement. He's got to get some of his own problems corrected. And it's like I said earlier, I think that right now he is, he's doing some good things, but there are some issues. So for anybody that's wanting to give him a full pass, you can't put this game on his shoulders. I completely agree with anybody saying that. To say he played no part in it is just foolish, in my opinion, because he absolutely did. He's got things to work on just like everybody else. But if he doesn't improve, then I think it will be addressed. They won't ride him all the way on the downward spiral. They won't do it. But, at the same time, he won't be pulled after one game, his first ever start in a hostile environment where not a whole lot around him was going right. I still think that's way too premature. And you got to understand, a lot of people will make the argument, Keelan, hey, throw him out there. He's a really talented kid. If you're going to go through these growing pains, go through them with Keelan. I understand that logic to an extent, but, the score might have been more lopsided, and he might lose you more games in the future. Now, if you've completely given up on this season after one game and you just don't, which I also, to an extent, I understand, but if you think they're a 6-6 football team, might as well go ahead and put Keelan out there and just kind of go through the growing pains and maybe give people a hope for the future. Maybe DJ Lagway him a little bit, but at the same time, I think right now they know that Ty Simpson, anybody that was any of the three quarterbacks, due to their lack of experience, they were going to be in that situation that Ty was in. They would have made maybe not the exact same mistakes, but they were going to make mistakes. And their mistakes might have been even more critical. Turnovers. That's one thing Ty didn't do. Well, unless you count not running on fourth down, which I guess I do count that as a turnover because it was wide open. But you were gonna get that regardless of who's out there. At this point, Ty's now got a little bit of experience. He works hard. He is respected from everything that I know in the locker room. So, but no, he's not going to get the amount of leash that Jalen Milroe did in the last year. That's not going to happen.
Great questions, by the way. Here's another one. This is from Tim. Difference between this year and last year, Vandy, Oklahoma, Tennessee weren't questioning toughness. Now, Michigan was the closest thing we had to this past weekend. And I agree with that. Look, I that's the reason I said what I said earlier. Like you could see this coming. The trend wasn't good. We talked it into being good, Clint. And I know you're upset at yourself. I can just tell because you feel like you bought into this and you shouldn't have. But everybody was telling us that. Everybody that we trust was telling us, hey, man, they're getting after it in practice. They look really good. And then when Tim Keenan went down, I was like, man, this is not going to be good. Just my gut feeling, But I think that they still, with all that said, man, I still think they can turn it around.
I mean, I do too. Turn it around to what extent, and there will be every step of the way, guys. I've typically been the optimist, but every step of the way, I'm going to have questions moving forward. Even if they kick the mess out of Louisiana Monroe and Wisconsin, even if they go on the road and get just a crazy upset win over Georgia, you're going to hear me the following week, and I'm going to acknowledge the turnaround and how good they've looked and everything else. But I'm also going to say, hey, we need to see them against Vanderbilt. I'm not handing anybody any more trophies based off of. Because the first half of that Georgia game last year, I just thought that was one of the most impressive halves of football. I don't know how many times Nick Saban had Alabama play a half of football that good. And, I let that carry me even through the loss to Vanderbilt. I'm like, man, but at their peak, man, this team is good. And it's just like I continue to give way too many passes. And that's been my biggest issue. So I'm not going to do that moving forward. At this point, it's acknowledge what they do that's good, and we will continue to talk about some of the good that came from this game. But also acknowledge there's a lot of bad right now, and even when if everything starts to look better, we're still going to have to we're still going to have to see a lot in a lot of situations for that trust to be earned again. Because the fan base right now, they trusted us, they trusted what the coaches were saying, what the players were saying. And they were fed a bunch of bull. And yes, it bothers me to my core that I was a part of that. There's no doubt. But one thing about me is I accept responsibility for my part in it. And I do whatever I can to make sure that I don't make the same mistake again. That's all I can do. But and hopefully Alabama does the same thing. We'll find out.
Yeah, we will. We'll find out Saturday. They'll take on Louisiana Monroe, and then they got Wisconsin coming into town. Then they play Georgia. That South Carolina game looks like it's going to be tough. Oh, yeah, LSU looked pretty good in their game too. I mean, like these are going to be a lot of really tough games. And the crazy thing, Clint, is that all the Auburn hats are back out now. And it's been nice over the last how many years where they had all their Auburn hats were hidden. They didn't come out a lot. They didn't see the light of day.
You ain't
now,
lying.
I mean, just seeing them like with their Auburn hats and shirts and stuff. I mean, good to see you guys back with your gear on again.
That is so damn true, man. That is it. There's been a lot of confident fan bases. Tennessee fans have been getting their digs in. Here's the thing: when you're like me and you like to have fun and you like to troll, when things don't go how you expect it to, you've left a lot out there that people can have fun with. You got to sit there and take it. And I've been eating my dose the last couple of days because that's just part of it. You're going to run your mouth. You got to accept the consequences. But it is funny because at this point, based off of one game, Alabama's going 5-7 and Auburn's going to the playoffs. And, I will say it seems to be trending in that direction more than it would be the opposite way. But that's one data point, and I'm excited to see how the rest of this looks because, I don't know how good Baylor is, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I love how Gus Malzahn is such a great coach that he is an offensive coordinator now, right? Like he ran from being a head coach to being a coordinator, and he's over there like talking smack. Like, come on, dude, you didn't cut it as a head coach. Like, save all that, when you're the head man again, then put all your stuff out there. But come on. And I think he's a good coach. They should have never fired him at Auburn. I was glad they did. Danko, thank you for the super sticker, man. Appreciate you, man. And then one more question here, one more super chat. Kickback, thank you, man. DeBoer and Wommack are so far over their heads. Exact same excuses after the losses last year. The college-specific schemes aren't going to work. I got to tell you, Clint, and I'm not going to sit here and lie, I question the same thing. I wonder if DeBoer – and I honestly, the thing that worries me the most about Wommack is that the number one player in the state back-to-back years has gone to Oregon. And they're both defensive players. And I'm sorry. That bothers me.
It should.
You got to lock those guys down, man. I mean, and you need them, especially an edge guy, a five-star edge guy, when you don't have anybody getting to the quarterback. Come on.
I mean, there's multiple ways of looking at that.
That's just my feelings. Look, I get it. Hey, man, it's NIL, this and that.
It is
Look,
NIL.
It's a relationship business, though.
You
coached in Mobile, and you can't get the guy from Mobile.
Yeah,
I don't work for Alabama. I work for myself, and that's the truth. And I know that's going to make some people mad there, but that's the truth. You got to win those in-state battles. You can't have Oregon coming in back-to-back years and taking 5 stars from you. You just can't.
I mean, I know you love me to death, but if a company came in and offered you $1 million a year to go do the same thing somewhere else, the relationship that I built
and Jimmy Stein.
The relationship I built with you, I don't think that's going to matter much in that situation.
You don't think we had the money for him? You don't think we had the money for him?
I think here's the thing: we keep hearing that they're within striking distance, so they might be accepting more money, and they might want to go ahead and take that more money. But you are right where relationships play into it. I think what it is if it came down to pure relationships, would it have been Oregon or would it have been Alabama? I don't know. If it would have come down to pure money, would it have come down to Oregon or Alabama? That I do know. It was Oregon. But Oregon did a good job of not only giving a heck of an NIL offer, but also they did a great job of establishing those relationships. So it's not like he might have great relationships with Alabama's coaching staff, might even have better relationships, but he also loves those guys at Oregon, and their paycheck's a lot bigger. So it's like, from his mind, and that's what you really can't, like, does that mean that they got to make up, you got to get an even better relationship with the player? I understand what you're saying. That's not a good look. In some ways, it's like, okay, do you open up the checkbook? But then once you do that with them and you go against, your I don't know, your protocol, then other guys are going to expect it. Now where do you get all that money from to keep up with Oregon? It's a tough situation. It's college football right now. But what I will say is that
what about the scheme?
What we saw on Saturday don't help with recruiting at all. It is not good. Lack of discipline, deer in headlights, shell shocked. Oh man, Alabama's the big talking point on Monday, but it ain't for good reasons. And all this of Kalen DeBoer keeping what Nick Saban had built kind of intact and kind of riding his own thing. It's like that's no longer a conversation, at least not right now. So this isn't good for recruiting. What they put on the field on Saturday, it's bad. But as far as the scheme, I agree with that to an extent. The stuff like I said before, the mugging, the linebackers, I'm not a fan of that. When you're playing that wolf as like that, it's not even really a stat linebacker because it's so shallow and it's kind of playing over the guard. But, a lot of the same run fit situations where they just aren't super comfortable doing it. I don't know that I would do that. I think if it was a pure, true 4-2-5 defense, and then maybe you started working into a 4-1-6 or something like that, maybe in certain situations, the 3-2-6 in, those third and super long situations, maybe I'd be fine with that. But it's, trying to be multiple, I get why you do it. But when guys aren't able to play confidently and you're leaving, it might be too much. You might be having them learn too much where they just, You're getting in and out of a bunch of different looks, and guys can't get comfortable, and it leaves holes exposed, and good teams will take advantage of it. I do think that Florida State's a much better team than I was anticipating. It's come together, it seems, way faster than I was anticipating. Hopefully, they keep that up because if they can, I don't think this will be as bad of a loss as it looks right now, but it doesn't really matter even if they're a really good football team. The way they wore your ass out, it's a bad look, but regardless.
Yeah. We'll be back again tomorrow. Guys, make sure that if you're not a subscriber to our channel, that you are now, man. Be part of what we're doing here. Like, subscribe, thumbs up. We ask you to do those things. Comments. You guys killed it on the comments today. A+ on comments. Because that's part of this. Like, let's get together and talk about this. Super chats. Thank you. You guys killing it there too. So definitely a great effort today by everyone involved. And we appreciate you so much. But like, subscribe, thumbs up, be a part of this. And thank you to Pearl River Resort for putting the show on again. The Timeout Sports Lounge is over in Golden Moon Casino, which is an hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 and change from Birmingham. You can go in there and just like you're out in Vegas, do all the things, whether you need the kiosk, you want the individual kiosk, they got those, or the window, and then big screen TVs in there, a big giant bar. It's an awesome place, Timeout Sports Lounge. So anything else, Clint?
No, I just appreciate everybody being here. Like I said, we're trying to we're going to be changing our approach a little bit too moving forward. Hate that it looks the way that it does, but if they can get the things kind of back on the right track, it can get really fun around here. So just appreciate everybody sticking with us. And for anybody who's new, certainly appreciate you being here. Definitely would ask that you like the video, subscribe to the channel, because, we're trying to grow this thing the best that we can, and we need all the support we can get.
And you can also get us on Cover Crimson Podcast Network. And that is Cover Crimson Podcast Network, Apple, Spotify, all those places as well. All right, keep your head up. There's big things coming for us. I promise you. Roll Tide.
I may not suit up on Saturdays anymore, but I'm still in the game.
Let's roll.
In here, I call the plays, make adjustments, and lay it on the line. Want to feel that fire, that rush? Then you've got to get in the game. I used to say it in the tunnel, and I still say it now. Let's roll.